Disney steals fan art. They just do. They use it in their books, they use it in their comics, they use it pretty much wherever they and their artists can get away with it, which, as it turns out, is pretty much everywhere, because although I've pointed out between YouTube and Twitter hundreds of cases of Disney doing this, and even put together a spreadsheet reflecting that, there's just nothing that can be done. The fan artists are the small guys here, Disney are the big guys. So today I want to talk about this topic one more time, probably not the last time, but one more time, and I know some of you will be a bit frustrated with that because you feel like maybe it's a grift that I do or it's something I do just for YouTube views. I promise you that is not the case. And to prove that, I will demonetize this video, which is actually quite in line with the topic of today's discussion. So I got this tweet from one of my followers, thank you by the way David, who says, Hogue Law just posted a video relating to fan art in Destiny 2. Looks like anything that E.C. Henry makes with Star Wars belongs by U.S. law to Lucasfilm/Disney unless he licenses it. Basically, fan art is free work for the owner of that IP. Now, I'm not going to comment on the legality of that. I haven't watched the video. I haven't seen the underlying legal arguments. And to be honest, I don't really care to. I'm a lawyer. I know that may be true. It may not be true. But as I've been talking about fan art throughout my entire YouTube career, it's never been a legal issue for me. Always a moral and ethical one as it relates to the use of fan art. And I'm making this video not only because of a recent situation, which I'm only going to briefly touch on, but also because this is something that I've gotten, and no disrespect to David, he was absolutely just forwarding this to me because he thought I would be interested in it, but I've got the comment a million times, well, why not sue Disney? Or you can't sue Disney, or Star Wars owns Star Wars, this is what you get. The thing is, it's not about money. So the recent situation, and I'm only going to touch on this very briefly because, to be honest, this is something E.C. Henry can talk about should he choose to, and I honestly don't really know how he's feeling about the entire situation. Anyway, in Star Wars Visions, there's a very brief scene at the final episode of the season, Akakiri, where we see a B-Wing crashing into a planet. Now, this isn't a normal B-Wing, and interestingly enough, it's not almost certainly, but 100% certainly a sort of copy of E.C. Henry's B-Wing. It's his design, or his version of the B-Wing from Star Wars. You can tell because there are several unique design elements that aren't present in an ordinary B-Wing. Now, this isn't traced, this is the artist's sort of take on E.C. Henry's vehicle, and in my humble opinion, this is pretty much the least egregious version of Star Wars using fan art that I've ever seen. This is not egregious. Something that's, say, far more egregious would be Disney tracing fan-made Mon Calamari cruiser designs and inserting them very weirdly and bizarrely into their own comic. Or, as I've pointed out before, that time where for a complete Star Wars comic run, every single capital ship and starfighter that appeared was traced. On another occasion, a special collector's edition of a comic, i.e. a version of the comic where the art is extra important and we're usually paid to get that exclusive cover, was made up entirely of a traced, fan-designed ship. This is something that has happened time and time again. And do the artists here have any recourse? Legally? No. Almost certainly they do have no recourse, as I'm sure that video described. It's always tricky when you're playing with someone else's IP. And I don't attack Disney legally for doing this. It's the way it is. It's very similar if Disney wanted to start strong-arming my YouTube channel. In that case, I would have a bit more of a basis. Everything I do is fair use, but ultimately Disney's the big dogs. They've got more lawyers. Then I have Vite ramen noodle packets, and ultimately there's not a whole lot that I can do. And I've got a lot of Vite ramen noodle packets. They send me basically an entire box every month. The issue is an ethical one. It's a moral one. Disney should not be taking other people's work, even if it is set within their IP, because as an artist, you should not take someone else's work and pass it off as your own. Now, the B-Wing case is very minor, but if you've got a good eye for the B-Wing like I do, and you watch that episode and you're not familiar with E.C. Henry's work, you will think that the person who animated this episode and the whole team behind it created a new Star Wars ship and that they deserve credit for the design. that is just not right. And that's the same thing when a bunch of new Mon Calamari cruisers are invented, or someone makes a really nice render of the Juggernaut, which fits prominently on a Star Wars RPG guide. It's very simple. Legally, can you take that work? Maybe, but ethically, it's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. You should ask, and you should pay the artist, or at the very least, give credit. And again, Disney knows this because Fractal Sponge, who has had his work stolen probably literally hundreds of times by official and unofficial sources, was paid by Lucasfilm to use his renders in the past. So ethically speaking, that's the bare minimum. For me, that is the bare minimum. Now, everyone makes mistakes. There have been times where I've accidentally used fan stuff in my thumbnails or my videos. Nobody's perfect. 100%. Nobody is perfect. But when you're a big corporation, you should at least try to do better. People are acting like me and everyone else who's complained about this for the past few years is being completely irrational about it. Listen, I wasn't arguing for people to storm Disney HQ when I saw my first case of traced or taken work. And even now, I purposefully go out of my way to not name the artists who do this, at least most of the time. If there's a particularly egregious example, that's different. But I go out of my way to not focus on the individual artists. I don't say that Disney is a hell corporation for doing this, although if you take everything in their totality, there's probably an argument for that. What I am saying is that there needs to be accountability and that people should be doing better. You're paying these comic book artists and these other artists money to design books and pages, and again, I point to that Star Wars comic series where every single ship featured, and that's not an exaggeration, you can see my breakdown of it, was a fan design. What's more, you're actively sacrificing the quality of the art that you're producing. If I were to buy a Star Wars comic, and I don't because I don't really like them, or a Star Wars reference book, I would do so partially because I want to see new art designed for that book, not because I want to see people's models manipulated to fit as best they can the tight constraints of the book. That's just not how the best art gets done, in my opinion, and that's certainly not how we get any innovation. And that's what Star Wars needs now, innovation. It needs to be fresh. There are so many amazing artists who just do phenomenal work, and I'm talking both fan artists like E.C. Henry and Fractal Sponge and a lot of the other people I've talked about on this channel, and also official artists like my friend Darren Tan, whose art you've probably recognized and even seen before on this channel. So it's not about legality, and it's also not about saying Disney's the worst company ever or the only one who does this practice, because that's something else we've seen frequently. From Destiny to Disney parks, this is something that seems to be pretty rampant in the online age. Let's just try to improve, and let's just try to support the independent artists, even if they are working in a pre-established IP. And also, hey, why not reach out to them and why not work with some of them directly? But guys, that's all for today. Until next time, be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.